I knew the air was poisoned the second I walked into the break room and saw the banana bread untouched. That's how you knew morale at Solvex was terminal when even free carbs couldn't save it. Nobody said anything, but everyone knew what was coming. The layoffs had been circling like buzzards for weeks. You could hear the slow death of departments in the silence between Slack pings. Cubicles turned graveyard. Coffee machines unplugged. Vending machines started taking cash again, like it knew nobody had a 401k left to tap. I'd survived 3 previous bloodbaths, and each time I was rewarded with a little more workload, a little less sleep, and a fresh new intern I had to train like a feral cat whisperer. They never kept the interns, or the COOs. I outlived all 3. The last one called me the soul of Solvex in an all hands, and asked me how Outlook worked 5 minutes later. I smiled and fixed it while mentally filing his compliments under corporate eulogies. I was Barbara, senior ops lead, 15 years of duct taping other people's bad decisions and calling it optimization. I knew where the bodies were buried because I alphabetized the death certificates. And you know what? I didn't complain. Not out loud. Not when they froze raises due to inflation and paid our CEO a resilience bonus. Not when they took away overtime but kept the mandatory weekend rollouts. Not even when they gave my title to a 27-year-old MBA with a podcast about biohacking peak productivity and a whiteboard that said Tuesdays are for vision. I played along, quietly, like a ghost that kept the pipes from rattling too loud, like wallpaper in a panic room. And speaking of quiet ghosts, 90% of you are listening to this like you're haunting my hallway too, silently nodding from behind your screens, but haven't hit subscribe or liked a single damn thing. That one little click, it's what keeps my team from going full HR PowerPoint mode. Help us stay petty. Hit the button. Now, where were we right? It happened on a Wednesday. Because of course it did. All corporate betrayals are midweek, so they can pretend Friday never heard about it. I opened Outlook at 7:54 a.m. and saw the subject line. Solvex organizational realignment notification enclosed. I didn't even have to open the email. I just closed my eyes and whispered, so it's me this time. It wasn't sadness. Not really. It was like watching a train derail in slow motion and realizing you were the one who laid the tracks a decade ago, blindfolded, unpaid, and still somehow blamed for the crash. The email was short. No thank you for your service. No severance. Just a line about streamlining core functions and eliminating redundancies. I was the redundancy. Imagine that. The woman who wrote the damn procedures manual for this place, and I was now officially extra. The kicker? My boss didn't even call. Not a Slack. Not a hey, can we chat? Just that cold slab of corporate meat in my inbox. I sat there for 10 minutes, staring at my screen like maybe it would apologize. It didn't. I closed the laptop. Then I opened a bottle of ginger ale I'd been saving in my desk drawer since Q4 last year. Poured it into my Solvex mug like it was champagne. Cheers, Barb. 15 years and not even a damn balloon, but I wasn't mad yet. Not really. Not until the second email came, because see, Solvex couldn't just fire me and move on. That would have been too clean, too dignified. No, I needed one last kick on my way out. The email was from HR. The subject line? Unemployment claim contested timecard inconsistencies. I opened it, read it twice. My hands didn't shake, my jaw didn't clench. I just sat there and let the words wash over me like lukewarm bathwater in a moldy tub. According to Solvex, I had been overpaid during idle operational periods and may have committed passive time theft. Passive time theft. They said I'd stolen time by not doing enough work during low-volume months. Like it was my fault their CEO spent $3 million on a CRM no one could log into. Like I didn't work unpaid weekends, fix other people's broken spreadsheets, stay late to run end-of-month reports because Todd and finance forgot. They were coming for my unemployment, after firing me without warning. After 15 years of cleaning their messes, that was the moment I stopped being a ghost. That was the moment I remembered the ledger. The first time I heard the phrase passive time theft, I thought it was a typo, like maybe they meant pensive and someone in HR just got excited using their word of the day calendar. But no, I read the email again, word for word. Cold as a church pew and twice as hollow. Dear Barbara, per your recent separation, please be advised that Solvex Systems will be contesting your unemployment eligibility based on identified irregularities in your productivity logs and timecard records, which may indicate passive time theft during several prior quarters. Regards, People Operations. People Operations. Not even Human Resources anymore. I guess human had too many legal implications. I read it 5 times. Each read got colder. Not angrier, colder. Like someone slowly turning down the temperature on your bath until you realize you've been sitting in ice. This wasn't just some petty checkbox they were clicking to save a few dollars. This was deliberate. This was character assassination with a PDF attachment. Passive time theft. That meant what? That I worked too quietly? That I didn't slap a GIF on every Slack message? That I didn't micromanage other people's incompetence loudly enough? I scrolled down. It attached a spreadsheet of my own hours, cherry-picked, manipulated, Half the weeks they flagged were after-hours support weeks where I'd been running late-night database cleanups or fixing Ops Hub errors that didn't get logged in the Jira system because their CTO wanted to streamline visibility. They were building a case against me. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling. 15 years, no write-ups, no warnings, glowing annual reviews, hell. I wrote half the templates for those, and now? Now I was some kind of ghost thief tiptoeing through their balance sheet, allegedly stealing time by being too efficient. You'd think betrayal would burn hot, but it didn't. It sat heavy, like wet wool, disgusting, clingy, familiar. I had a voicemail from my old colleague Lanny. "Hey Barb, I just got let go too. They said budget cuts, but then posted my job on LinkedIn an hour later under a different title. Hope you're okay?" I wasn't. But I would be. Because while HR thought they were sending a warning shot, what they really did was crack open a vault I'd been quietly building since the day Solvex pulled that little stunt in 2012, back when they reclassified all salaried ops staff as project-based consultants without changing the pay. That was the first time I realized this company didn't make mistakes. They made decisions. Calculated ones. And they assumed no one was watching. But I was. I opened my personal cloud drive. Folder name just in case. Subfolders by year. Sub-subfolders by quarter. Inside, screenshots of system logs, copies of revised handbooks, PDFs of payroll stubs that didn't match my contract. Scanned post-its from managers saying we'll backdate this. And most importantly, the big one, the wage discrepancy ledger. I hadn't looked at it in over a year, but I'd kept it updated, like muscle memory. Every time something didn't add up, when Diego didn't get his holiday pay, when Jean's overtime got rolled into next week, when they stopped paying out unused PTO but still required us to accrue it, I logged it. I wasn't trying to be noble. I was just tired of people pretending they didn't know. The ledger was precise. Timestamps, dollar amounts, screenshots, names, email headers, all formatted in an Excel workbook with the kind of obsessive detail only a woman who's been gaslit for 15 years can produce. I clicked it open. Selly one still said in bold Arial black, wage discrepancies Solvex systems internal only. I changed that, deleted internal only. Saved it as Solvex wage violations 15ers final XLSX, then I checked the metadata tab. Good, all traceable, all time-stamped, all mine. HR had thrown the first stone. I was just going to hit reply all. The first entry in the ledger was dated August 17, 2010, a Tuesday. It was for $26.40, my overtime from a Friday night that never got processed because the VP of Ops at the time said, "We're a salary culture now. Be a team player." Back then, I didn't think of it as theft. I thought of it as loyalty tax. You stay late, you don't rock the boat. And eventually someone notices your sacrifice and sends a Starbucks gift card or maybe promotes you out of guilt. Spoiler, nobody noticed. Nobody felt guilt. The only card I got was a birthday one from reception, and even that stopped after they outsourced her job. But that little $26 glitch, it stuck with me. I screenshotted the time card submission and saved it to my personal Google Drive. Labeled the folder just in case. Didn't know what case I was building, but I kept building. Every time someone got shafted and shrugged it off, I took notes. Not out of spite, out of habit. Out of that slow burn rage women my age carry like a handbag, always near, always zipped. Like when Damien in logistics missed 3 PTO payouts because payroll migrated systems, or when Lydia in compliance had her pay docked for tardiness after staying late 3 nights in a row to finalize a merger memo. I didn't just log my own bruises, I logged everyone's, quietly, patiently, because I knew Solvex's game, screw each employee just a little, never enough to trigger a revolt. 100 paper cuts spread across departments, death by deduction. The spreadsheet was meticulous, tabs by year, color-coded by type, overtime theft orange, PTO erasure blue, roll creep gray, payroll backdating red. There were embedded email threads, timestamped screenshots from Slack, and even phone call summaries with exact wording from managers who thought gaslighting was a management style. And names. I had names, not just of victims, of perpetrators, directors who signed off on policy changes that slashed hourly rates mid-quarter, HR reps who missed back pay filings until people gave up, CFO who once said, and I quote, "If they notice, we'll apologize. If they don't, that's margin." I'd filed that one under contempt executive, so when HR sent me that little gem of an email accusing me of passive time theft, I didn't panic. I didn't cry. I cracked my knuckles and got to work. First, I duplicated the file. Made a clean version, no jokes in the comments, no venting shorthand like "sue this bastard." Just raw data. Cold. Clinical, formatted like an accountant's confession. Then I added a new tab, titled "It Impacted Employees." Line by line, I listed every worker I'd personally seen shorted over the last 15 years. Name, department, estimated losses, and the timestamped evidence from payroll systems, emails, or chat logs. I even included 2 contractors who got ghosted after submitting final invoices. Solvex thought 1099s didn't count. It underestimated me, they always had. They thought I was a cog, that I'd go quietly, that I didn't have receipts, but I was an ops lead. Of course I had receipts. I invented the filing system. I scanned the final version. It read less like a spreadsheet and more like an autopsy. The slow, deliberate dissection of a company that built its bottom line by stealing minutes, hours, and dignity from its people. The final act, I saved it. File name, Solvex wage violations 15 or XLSX, then I opened Outlook. Found the email from HR, that smug little notification that thought it could scare me into silence, and I clicked reply all. No subject line change. No fancy signature. Just a single sentence. Here is my full time card and payroll discrepancy archive. Let me know if I've misunderstood the law. And then, for good measure, I BCC'd the wage theft reporting hotline for the State Attorney General's office. No threats, no caps lock, just data. Let the system eat itself. The cursor hovered over the paperclip icon like it knew what it was about to do. I attached the file, Solvex wage violations 15 or XLSX, all 42 megabytes of it. Spreadsheets, screenshots, internal memos, timestamped Slack chats, export logs, signed policies with sneaky clause revisions. Even an audio clip from a Zoom call where our ex-CFO mumbled, "Just pull from their rollover, nobody reads their stubs anyway." I'd listened to that audio 13 times. I didn't include the part where I laughed after he said it. Just the part where he signed off on wage theft like it was a lunch order. Back in Outlook, I typed my line. Here is my full time card and payroll discrepancy archive. Let me know if I've misunderstood the law. That was it. No threats, no legalese. No crying emojis or per my last email petness. Just the truth, formatted in conditional cell highlights and cross-referenced formulas. I double-checked the recipients. HR, legal, ops leadership. My direct supervisor, Roger, who once told me you're too smart to be bitter, right after giving my idea to a man named Brad who couldn't spell throughput. And then I BCC'd the wage theft reporting hotline, the actual state-run portal. They had an email for whistleblower evidence submissions. I'd bookmarked it a year ago and labeled the folder Rainy Day. I clicked send. You ever hear silence hit a room? Not just the kind where no one's talking, but the kind where even your laptop fan pauses like it wants to see what happens next. That was the moment. I stared at the screen for a full minute. Nothing happened. No reply, no bounce back. No out of office from Janine in legal, who once scheduled a diversity webinar during a Jewish holiday and called it progressive calendaring. Then it started. First, a message from Lanny. Subject line, Barb, body, is this real? I just got forwarded your email from a friend in accounting. Holy crap. Did you really send that? Then one from Kyle in DevOps. What is happening? Did you mean to reply all? Oh, Kyle, sweet naive Kyle. Of course I meant to. The only thing I didn't mean to do was hold it in for 15 years. A ping from my old project manager. Whoa, this is a lot. Are you okay? Yeah, I was okay. For the first time in a long time. There's a strange kind of peace that comes with pushing the boulder off your chest and watching it roll downhill toward the people who built the hill in the first place. The reactions trickled in like aftershocks. Quiet at first, then one by one. I got a Teams message. Legend? Another, reading this with wine, go off. Then a DM from one of the more senior engineers. I cross-checked one of your payroll entries against my own logs from last year. Same discrepancy, same week, same missing hours. You're not imagining this. I replied with a thumbs up. Not a single executive said a word. Radio silence. The kind of silence that smells like burning printer toner and last-minute legal consults. I knew the bomb hadn't exploded yet. Most of them probably hadn't even opened the attachment, but the file was out there. The match had been struck, and nobody could unsee it now. And the thing about a well-built ledger, it doesn't scream. It just waits to be read. And when it is, it doesn't make noise. It makes consequences. It was 8:12 a.m. the next morning when my phone buzzed. I was sitting on my couch in yesterday's sweats, sipping reheated coffee and half watching the morning news while my cat, Beatrix, made war on a paper towel roll like it owed her rent. I wasn't expecting anything. I figured I'd spend the next week getting passive-aggressively unfollowed on LinkedIn while Solvex quietly deleted my name from the internal wiki. Then Outlook lit up. Subject, unemployment claim contested timecard inconsistencies from Assistant Attorney General State Wage Theft Task Force 2, HR at Solvex, Legal at Solvex, Roger M. E. Barbara CC, Investigations at State Gov Body received. Opening an inquiry, that was it. 11 words, dry as drywall. But to me, it was a war horn. See, what Solvex didn't count on, what companies like Solvex never count on, is that some of us read the fine print. Some of us remember when the state updated its labor enforcement program in 2019. Some of us bookmarked the hotline. Some of us don't just know where the bodies are buried. We printed the blueprints and saved them as PDFs. I stared at the email in disbelief for a second, then I laughed, just once, sharp, loud enough that Beatrix bolted under the couch. The first reaction came from an old coworker. WTF did you just do? Then another, Barb, I think you might have just started a fire. Oh, sweethearts, the fire started years ago. I just opened a window. Word spread fast, Slack screenshots, forwarded threads. By 9:00 a.m., I was told someone printed out the email and passed it around the break room like it was a subpoena, which, in hindsight, it kind of was. At 9:13, someone from IT messaged me. The head of legal saw the preview on his phone, stood up and knocked his chair over. I am not exaggerating, it's still sideways. At 9:21, I got a message from an ex-director I hadn't heard from in 3 years. Holy hell, Barbara. Respect. And at 9:27, an anonymous Gmail address forwarded me a screenshot from inside Solvex's leadership Slack. It was a frantic message chain titled #crisis response, started by legal. Messages were flying. One exec wrote, "Is this real? Did she actually send this to the AG?" Another added, "What's the exposure if this gets media traction?" The best part, one message read, "Should we contact her? Offer to resolve this before it escalates," followed by "Too late. The email chain's been flagged on our compliance monitor. State email domain triggered an alert. Poor babies. I wonder if they paused to consider the irony, flagged by the very compliance system they underfunded, undertrained, and ignored. I just sat there, sipping my lukewarm coffee, watching it unfold like the world's slowest, most satisfying courtroom drama. No shouting, no gloating, just forward buttons doing what they were born to do. By noon, I was getting calls. Real ones. An investigator from the AG's office reached out, said they'd be reviewing my materials, and asked if I'd be willing to answer a few follow-up questions. I said yes, of course. I was happy to help. They also mentioned that since I'd submitted substantial third-party evidence involving other employees, the inquiry would be broadened to include wage violations beyond my personal case. That's when it hit me. This wasn't about unemployment anymore. This wasn't even about me. This was criminal. Solvex didn't just fire a woman and gaslight her on the way out. They left behind a paper trail soaked in gasoline, and I just handed the match to someone with jurisdiction. I muted my phone, sat back, watched Beatrix crawl out from under the couch like I owed her answers. I gave her a treat. And then I opened my inbox, just to see who'd flinch next. By 2 p.m., they'd activated what Solvex used to call escalation protocols, which was just a fancier way of saying everyone run in circles and scream in business casual. The internal calendar was lighting up like a Christmas tree, meetings stacked on top of meetings. Half of them named things like urgent sync or strategic containment, the kind of titles you use when you're trying not to admit that someone just pulled the fire alarm and locked the door behind them. I didn't need access to see it. I had sources. Solvex forgot that when you train the people who train the people, you become a permanent fixture in the back of their brains. I had project managers, sysadmins, even a former HR assistant still on their way out the door with one foot and a grudge with the other. They were feeding me screenshots, pings, even raw calendar exports. One meeting invite caught my eye. Subject: Crisis Communications Drafting Do Not Forward Attendees. General Counsel, Chief People Officer, Director of Internal Affairs, PR Crisis Firm, External Consultant, a PR firm. They'd already called in the spin doctors. Meanwhile, I was sitting on my porch, barefoot, legs up on a plastic patio chair I got from Big Lots in 2015, fielding emails like some kind of vengeance librarian. My inbox was a buffet of reactions. Some were scared. "Barb, should I be worried? I clocked unpaid overtime for months. Do you think they'll retaliate against people who speak up?" Some were grateful. "I didn't know anyone else had kept proof, thank you." Seriously, I thought I was crazy. My wife cried reading your spreadsheet. One message just said, "I'm with you." Another one came from someone in finance I'd barely interacted with. "They're meeting right now." I heard the phrase plausible deniability 3 times before my headphones disconnected. "Just thought you'd want to know." I did. At 3:47 p.m., I got an email from an address I didn't recognize. info@workguardadvocacy.org. The subject line was "Whistleblower Support Resources. We're here if you need us." They'd seen the forwarded AG email. One of their volunteers was monitoring the state's hotline submissions and flagged mine. They offered legal support, press protection, counseling if needed. I wasn't afraid, but it was nice to know someone was watching my six. At 4:02, another email came in, this one from a journalist. Not just any journalist. Labor Watch Midwest. The subject line, "We saw your name. Can we talk?" Turns out someone had tipped them off. Probably someone in payroll who'd finally grown a spine or lost a mortgage payment. Either way, they'd been working on a series about systemic wage theft in mid-sized tech firms. Solvex had just made their shortlist. I didn't respond. Yet, back inside the collapsing Jenga tower of Solvex, things were getting spicy. Someone leaked a Slack exchange between the chief people officer and legal. "CPO, we need to acknowledge something publicly, even if it's vague. Transparency is trending." Legal? Absolutely not. Anything that suggests acknowledgement is legal suicide. We deny or we spin. CPO, but her spreadsheet is going viral internally. Half the staff is reading it on their phones during meetings. Legal, then block the file share. Frame it as inaccurate personal claims. CPO, she has screenshots. Legal, then we frame her as disgruntled, emotional, unstable. CPO, she sent it with no emotion. No language to challenge, just data. Legal, then we're already screwed. You know you've made your point when the lawyers start using language like that in writing. I didn't need revenge, I needed clarity. And clarity, it turns out, makes people very, very nervous. I shut my laptop, took a walk, let the storm rage without me for a while, because I wasn't in it anymore, not really. I was the storm. And now that it was moving, nothing Solvex did could stop what was coming. The only question left was, how far would they fall before they tried to grab my hand and pretend it was an invitation instead of a lifeline? The email came in at 8:11 a.m. the next day, marked confidential without prejudice. That's lawyer speak for we're not admitting guilt, but we'd like to pay you enough to shut the hell up. It was from Solvex's outside counsel. Not legal, not HR, someone new, polished. Firm branded, probably charging $800 an hour to say sorry without using the word sorry. The offer was couched in civility, like a poisoned scone wrapped in silk. We appreciate your years of service and are regretful that your departure occurred under stressful circumstances. Solvex would like to resolve this matter in a manner that is mutually beneficial and avoids unnecessary escalation. Attached. Please find a draft settlement agreement and NDA for your review. Settlement, $37,500. NDA, 14 pages. One of the clauses barred me from speaking to any current or former employee about Solvex wage practices. Another banned disclosure of documents or records obtained during employment, including internal communications. Even tried to ban me from cooperating with third-party investigations unless compelled by court order. Cute. But here's the thing, I'd already cooperated. Fully, willingly. No court order needed. I didn't respond to their lawyer. I forwarded the email to the AG's office with the subject line, Solvex Private Settlement Attempt FYI. The reply came less than an hour later. Thank you, Miss Barbara. Please note that the scope of our inquiry is now expanding. Based on corroborating evidence and testimony we've received since your submission, the task force is initiating a broader investigation into Solvex systems and its wage practices affecting multiple employee classes. We may be in contact again for additional details. I read it 3 times. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I just nodded, like I was watching a train finally arrive that I'd been waiting on for years. A few minutes later, a message came from a former coworker, one I hadn't heard from in a long time. Barbara, they just called me, the AG's office. They asked about the payroll discrepancies in 2017. I told them what I knew. I backed you. You're not alone. Then another, Barbara, I didn't have the courage to save anything, but I remember. I remember what they did to Jen, to Raul. Tell me who to talk to, then another. If they come after you, I've got emails, documents. Just say the word. I had witnesses. I had backups. I had the truth, formatted, archived, and timestamped. But most importantly, I had momentum. Solvex tried to put out a wildfire with a check stub, and now they were trying to pretend they hadn't already burned down their own credibility. Their offer wasn't about me. It was about plugging a leak in a dam already fractured at every seam. Because here's the reality they couldn't spreadsheet their way out of. You don't get to play petty when your pettiness just triggered a state-level audit. You don't get to lie about time theft and then beg the timekeeper to pretend she never saw the books. And you sure as hell don't get to offer hush money to the woman who built the ledgers, color-coded the rot, and knew exactly who signed off on it every quarter. They underestimated me. They thought I wanted revenge. What I wanted was truth, with footnotes. And now that the investigation was public, Solvex couldn't bury it behind HR policy and pastel PowerPoint slides. They were in it now, neck deep. Every executive who smirked through a payroll realignment, every manager who called unpaid work passion, every CFO who decided PTO was non-essential overhead was going to feel the audit crawl up their spine like a cold hand with a badge. They wanted silence. I gave them structure, and structure doesn't beg. It doesn't cry. It doesn't negotiate. It files. And then it waits. It was a Tuesday when the second law firm reached out. Different tone this time. Less cease and desist, more please and thank you. The email came directly from Solvex's board counsel, White Shoe, Old Money, the kind of firm that doesn't show up unless the insurance carrier is sweating and the private equity boys are pacing. Subject line read, exploratory conversation regarding remediation pathways. In other words, we're screwed. Please help. They asked if I'd be open to participating in a confidential advisory review to help them assess systemic vulnerabilities and demonstrate good faith cooperation with regulatory authorities. That's corporate lingo for, we need the fox to fix the henhouse before the health inspector shows up with a warrant. I didn't respond immediately. I brewed a fresh pot of coffee, sat on my porch, watched the leaves twitch in the breeze, because when the people who fired you call you to clean up their mess, you don't rush, you write terms. 3 days later, I responded through my own counsel. Term 1, anonymous restitution for every employee affected by wage violations over the past 10 years, not just the high-profile roles, not just the loud ones, the warehouse staff, the night shift analysts, interns who never knew they were exploited. Full back pay with interest, deposited discreetly, quietly, but fully. Term 2, a signed admission of corporate misconduct submitted directly to the State Attorney General's office, not a press release, not a vague "we've learned from our mistakes" blog post. A signed document, sealed and notarized, acknowledging wage theft occurred, on company letterhead, with board signatures. Term 3, my reinstatement. Not to senior ops lead. That seat's cursed and cheap and long since burned. I wanted a new title, a new position, one they couldn't spin or sideline or rename in the next restructure. Compliance Oversight Liaison Independent Status Direct Reporting Line to the Attorney General's Task Force. Full audit privileges. No managerial oversight. Remote. Permanent. I sent the list. No fluff. No smiley faces. No room for interpretation. For 2 days. Silence, then a meeting invite. Video call. No cameras off. Every board member present. All of them in suits, even the ones calling in from home. One had the audacity to sip from a Hash Boss Life mug. Another smiled like I was the girl he didn't notice in high school suddenly wearing heels and holding his GPA in a shredder. Their lead counsel spoke first. "We appreciate your directness, Barbara. The board has reviewed your terms. I waited. We're prepared to accept them. With minor adjustments regarding timeframes, I didn't speak." He cleared his throat. "We will execute restitution payments in 3 waves within 90 days. The admission letter has been drafted and will be signed pending final AG language approval. And your role, well, we've drafted a formal offer." He smiled like a man handing over a hostage. "Congratulations, Compliance Oversight Liaison." I nodded. "Good," I said. "I'll need access to the legacy payroll system immediately." Someone on the call flinched. They had no choice. They couldn't hide the rod anymore. Not from regulators. Not from employees. Not from the file I'd already turned over to the AG, the whistleblower NGO, and 3 journalists I still hadn't called back. I wasn't just a former employee with a grudge. I was the one person who could untangle the knots they'd spent 15 years tying around other people's paychecks. And now I had power. Not in a title, in leverage, in receipts, in control. I watched their faces as I reviewed the draft offer. Some tried to smile. Some didn't bother because they knew they weren't hiring me. They were submitting. And I wasn't coming back to fix things. I was coming back to audit everything they still thought was hidden. Because you don't get to bury the truth when the gravekeeper keeps the receipts. The company-wide Zoom was scheduled for 10 o'clock a.m. sharp. Mandatory attendance. The invite didn't say why, just marked company realignment update, which everyone knew was PR code for brace for another steaming plate of corporate casserole. You could practically hear the collective groan ripple through the employee calendar sync. But this wasn't a layoff call. This was something else entirely. At 9:59, nearly 400 faces filled the grid. Cameras off, mics muted. Silent avatars blinking with that same exhausted tension you see in hospital waiting rooms and HR training videos. Everyone had heard rumors, some of them ridiculous, that legal was being gutted, that the AG had subpoenaed internal Slack threads, that someone from payroll cried during a compliance dry run. Then the CEO joined. Live. Jacket, tie, serious face. My fellow employee's face. You know the one. Same one he used when the office flood ruined a server room because he refused to approve a maintenance budget. "Good morning, everyone," he began, voice strained like someone who'd spent the last 2 nights sleeping in a guest room filled with legal printouts and a marriage teetering on the brink. He cleared his throat. "Today, I want to speak to you all candidly about a new chapter in our company's journey, one rooted in accountability." Ah, there it is. Behind him, in a tiny Zoom window, sat a woman from the state ag's office. No background blur, no smile, just a steady presence watching. The CEO continued. "After thorough internal review and in collaboration with state authorities, we are introducing a newly created role within our structure. One that ensures every employee, past and present, receives the oversight they deserve." My camera turned on. No filter. No smirk, just a gray blazer. Hair pulled back, no makeup. No jewelry, I didn't need theatrics, I was the consequence. He looked straight into the camera as he said it. "Please welcome Barbara Blake, our new Compliance Oversight Liaison. She will have autonomous authority across all departments, full audit access, and will report directly to both the board and External Oversight Council." The chat exploded. "Wait, Barbara? She's back. Is this real?" Holy SHT, but I didn't look at chat. I didn't look at the CEO. I opened the payroll system window, the legacy one, the one with the patches only 3 people on Earth knew how to navigate. They'd given me admin credentials before the call. I didn't ask permission. The system lagged, of course it did, but finally loaded. One checkbox. Label, enable ongoing audit triggers status, inactive. I hovered for a second, just long enough for the silence to thicken, and I clicked it. Heavy check mark audit trigger enabled. The CEO's face didn't change. But the chat slowed. You could feel it, the weight of it, the shift. The moment people realized this wasn't just a new job, this wasn't just window dressing. This was a reckoning wearing comfortable shoes. The AG observer nodded once. That was all. No one said another word, not the board, not legal, not HR, because what was there to say? 15 years of being overlooked, underpaid, undermined, fired without severance, accused of time theft, and now my name was in the system under compliance oversight. One final thought crossed my mind as I logged out, stood up, and pushed away from my desk with the soft scrape of old wood on tile. They wanted to contest a claim. I submitted evidence. Turns out that's the difference between pettiness and prosecution. Appreciate you sticking around, you legends of the break room. Subscribe for more chaos. Let's make your old managers spill their coffee in fear.